For centuries, we humans have been searching endlessly for the answers to several questions. How did we come to be, and what is our place in the universe? One of the last attempts to answer these questions came in the 19th century from the famous Charles Darwin. There's nothing magical, astral, unearthly, divine, etc. in his explanation, just evolution. Evolution is to date the only universal accepted explanation by scientific world for our existence, although in recent years, critics of this theory have grown in disbelief. Another explanation is found through the Hebrew Bible, known as the Tanakh, which contains 24 books divided into 3 parts, the 5 books of the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketubah. The first part of the Christian Bible is the Old Testament, which contains at a minimum these 24 books of the Hebrew Bible. The Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Christian churches also include as part of the Old Testament canon some secondary canonical books and passages. The second part of the Bible in the New Testament, which contains 27 books, the 4 canonical Gospels, and the Acts of the Apostles, 21 apostles, and the Book of Revelation. The Bible has been translated into more than 2,500 languages and sells more than 25 million copies worldwide each year. The earliest texts that became the basis of the Old Testament date back from the 8th century before Christ. The Bible contains our origins through our Creator, Lord God. He is the creator of everything material and immaterial that we see and do not see. This is all described in great detail in chapter 1 of Genesis. In this video, we'll turn our attention to much a more ancient text, an explanation of creation given long before the above two, a text that later many biblical writings would surprisingly repeat, only with different character names. Dating from 2600 BC, the Hymn of Kesh tells a different story of our creation. Among other things, this ancient text reveals the reason for our appearance. However, it is not a universally accepted because it tells of celestial gods who created us and lived among us, even though it is in a pantheon of gods, one of the most advanced ancient civilizations to which we owe many of our skills today, such as writing, music, cattle breeding, textile weaving, carpentry, pottery work, brewing, and so on. The Sumerian civilization appears as if out of nowhere bequeathed us a myriad of knowledge and moved us evolutionarily forward for centuries and then disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared. No one to this day can explain the emergence and disappearance of the Sumerian civilization. Briefly about the Sumerians. For more than 2 millennia, they ruled their land sovereignly until the mighty Babylonians moved in 2004 BC. The people of Sumer first left traces of human activity in the region around 4500 BC, although some scholars suggest their presence may date back even earlier. The Sumerians have left an indelible mark on humanity with the extraordinary advances they have made in our collective development. Their distinctive handwriting remains in history with the virtuoso creation of towns and villages they spread across their territories. From the golden sands of Mesopotamia rose magnificent city-states such as Eridu, Nippur, Lagash, Kish, and Uruk. Each of these was a fortress city surrounded by colossal walls that incorporated nearby villages into its protected zone. The most populous of these Sumerian metropolises numbered over 80,000 people. The Sumerians introduced many innovations in architecture and urban planning. They are credited with laying the cornerstone of modern architecture and construction. The language of Sumer is a linguistic relic. It is the oldest known language that defies characterization within any of our known language groups. Fluency in writing became the jewel of Sumerian civilization. leaving behind a treasure trove of tens of thousands of inscribed tablets, some of which have been discovered in modern archaeological expeditions. Dating back to 2400 BC in the city of Ebla, the earliest written laws are engraved on tablets in the so-called Codex of Ur-Nammu. The Sumerian civilization is believed to have inscribed countless literary artifacts, though only fragments have been discovered so far. Among these remains, Sumerian epic poetry stands out, casting a long shadow that has touched Greece, Rome, and even finds echoes in the pages of the Bible. The Sumerian pantheon of gods. The chronicles of human history reveal a myriad of spiritual paths and beliefs that span the ages, highlighting a rich palette of world religions. Not every religious or spiritual community has left behind written traces, which is why the identity of the world's first religion remains shrouded in mystery. Yet dedicated historians and tireless archaeologists, armed with brushes, shovels, and an insatiable curiosity, have unearthed ancient manuscripts that whisper stories of spiritual beliefs from the cradle of civilization. Where do the traces of ink and parchment lead us when we search for the oldest known religious sacred text? We find the answer back in time, far from well-trodden paths of Hinduism, Judaism, or other major religious denominations of our time. In the sandy expanses of present-day Iraq, echoes of the long-lost Sumerian civilization reverberate an ancient city that flourished more than 4,000 years ago. Among the ruins and relics of the forgotten metropolis, the oldest sacred text ever discovered has been found, a testament to the deep spiritual essence of our ancestors millennia ago. The Kesh Temple Hymn. As if plucked from a time capsule, the text, known as the Hymn to the Temple of Kesh, transports us to the era around 2600 BC. Its origins lie in the green marshes and glittering ziggurats of Sumer. In fact, evidence of this legacy of humanity's most ancient civilization begins in earnest as early as 5200 BC. Its pioneers built the first religious buildings, silent sentinels that bear witness to more than 7 millennia of history. The Hymn of the Temple of Kesh was discovered in the Sumerian city of Tel Abu Salabi. Its contents are inscribed in cuneiform. The 134 lines, divided into 8 intriguing sections, paint a vivid picture of Kesh as a ray of righteousness located near Ekkur, the mythical center of the Sumerian pantheon. Through its lyrical narrative, the hymn offers a tantalizing glimpse into the cosmological beliefs of ancient society and its place in the grand scheme of the universe. It is the first of many texts speaking of the Sumerian gods, better known today as the Anunnaki. A detailed video about the pantheon of Anunnaki gods can be found on our channel, so we will not go into detail about it here. It seems that tales of contact with other worlds and strange celestial ships traversing the blue skies of Earth are not just a figment of some science fiction writer's imagination. They are tales reaching us from the mists of antiquity. In the dusty scrolls discovered in Nineveh, in the treasures of Library of Ashurbanipal, we find a mystical tale of the mysterious King Etna. His legend tells of an unprecedented journey, a flight aboard the celestial ship of the gods, a radiant maiden descendants to Earth, in which today might be described as a UFO. She is searching for Etna, the ruler of Kish, a city whose history is woven through the annals of Sumerian kings, finding its place in time after the Great Flood. The arrival of this celestial maiden marks an astonishing chapter in Etna's reign, a period in which he went from shepherd to king and will now ascend to the heavens to explore the distant lands above. Sumerian records indicate that Etna reigned for an extraordinary long time, 1,560 years, or perhaps 635, depending on the source. After this epic period, his descendants claimed the throne. However, Etna's legacy is forever remembered as the one who ascended to heaven. Could this legend be one of the earliest evidence of extraterrestrial contact? Historical records and cultures of the ancient world often contain accounts of divine visitations. It is possible that our ancestors simply interpreted these advanced visitors from outer space as gods. Many argue that the Sumerian civilization, often called the first civilization on Earth, was not just in contact with extraterrestrials. It may have been influenced or even created by them. The connection between Sumerians and aliens continues to be a subject of heated debate among ufologists, proponents of the theory that humanity's origins may be extraterrestrial. Did the Anunnaki create humans? Today, more and more researchers and ufologists are interpreting Sumerian texts as reference to descending to and ascending from Earth more and more boldly. They even drew a parallel with similar descriptions in biblical text, where God's intercession descendants among the laity or his earthly minions ascend into the heavenly realm. In fact, there is still no anonymous answers about how the Anunnaki created us. One hypothesis fiercely reminds us of the story of the Nephilim. According to it, the gold reserves of the Anunnaki's home planet, Nibiru, were depleted, and they set out to crisscross the universe in search of a new deposit of the precious metal. Their planet was on the brink of disaster, and they had to get their hands on this precious material at any cost. When they came to Earth, it was inhabited by primitive creatures who in no way prevented them from mining gold for themselves. However, the process was rather difficult and hard. It was for this reason they began to pass on their knowledge to the humanoid beings inhabiting the Earth. That is, the aliens and the ones who made the real humans, and passed on to them everything that corresponds to the concept of civilization. Just as the Nephilim came down to Earth and passed on their knowledge to the humans. Another even bolder hypothesis suggests that the aliens decided to create assistants for themselves. In the course of genetic DNA experiments, humans were created who work for the aliens in the mines. At the same time, many of these experiments were far from successful. As a result, creatures with human body and the head of various animals have appeared. For a long time, humans were actually slaves of the aliens, which partly explains the emergence of myths about the rule of the all-powerful and fearsome Anunnaki. After a period, the aliens had difficulties on their home planet and were forced to return home, leaving humans to exist and evolve on their own. There is another ramification to the version here. The slave people revolted and rebelled against the Anunnaki. After fierce fighting, the Anunnaki were driven from the land. Nevertheless, the similarity between ancient Sumerian wisdom and our modern sciences prompts us to reconsider our preconceptions, as it is possible that we are simply following in the footsteps of these ancient pioneers. Could it be the most compelling thread concerning this inexplicable rise to actually the hint of celestial contact found on the ancient parchment of Sumerian text? According to the narrative, the Sumerians interacted with aliens who traveled to Earth and came from the distant planet of Nibiru. This mysterious world is described as having an extremely elongated orbit that crosses the threshold of our solar system every 3,600 years. Every element of this extraordinary story intertwines, creating a narrative that blurs the lines between history and science fiction, myth and reality. This story passed down through the ages whispers an enticing possibility. The first contact was made not in our era, but in an age when civilization was in its infancy, under the same sky we watch today. If you like this video, share it with friends and subscribe to the channel.